You know his name, but how much do you know about the franchise's climactic chase scene from License to Kill? From high-octane action to jaw-dropping stunts, let's uncover this underappreciated 1989 film. See what the international man of mystery has up his sleeves and examine why the tanker chase has cemented its place as one of the most unforgettable Bond set pieces. Before we get behind the wheel, we need some context. Story and tone matters. The Dalton films stand out and are notable for being dark. There's a level of grit that audiences haven't seen yet, even in the living daylights. Remember this guy? He's Felix Leiter, Bond's best friend, at least in a workplace setting. Played by David Hedison for the second time, with his first being in Live and Let Die 16 years prior. Felix had been portrayed by 5 other actors prior to License to Kill, and played by John Terry in the first Dalton Bond film, The Living Daylights. Bond doesn't exactly have a consistent track record when it comes to its cast. We're gonna be honest, these films are far from perfect, and the movie tries very hard to make the Bond and Felix relationship make sense. But due to the lack of continuity and consistency with that character, it almost doesn't. Timothy Dalton does a lot of excellent work as James Bond to realistically portray the trauma and emotions associated with that part of the plot to sell its revenge tale. Are there enough moments between Bond and Felix from these movies to build a meaningful relationship for Bond's turn to revenge to make sense from a script level? We'll leave that to your judgment. Now, onto the tanker chase itself. Shot on the Mexican Federal Highway 2D in La Rumarosa, Baja California, Mexico, which had been closed for safety reasons following several fatal vehicle accidents, Bond and Pam Bouvier arrive at the scene on a crop duster, which is more accurately a Piper PA-18 Super Club monoplane, piloted by Ken Kalman and coordinated and performed by aerial stunt supervisor and Bond double Corky Fornoff. The plane features a 40-pound Bond dummy in it, which was used to maximize the control of the aircraft, which had to be filmed during the morning when the winds were calmer. It had remote smoke grenades in the back of the plane that can be activated with a button for a later stunt. Our heroes track down drug lord Franz Sanchez, who's responsible for setting the sharks on Felix and killing Della Churchill, Felix's bride. During the wedding, Felix gifted James a lighter. Let's put a pin on this lighter for now. In comes James, landing very roughly on a speeding Kenworth 18-wheeler. The 3 principal stunt trucks were named Pamela 1, 2 and 3 after our main Bond girl, with Kenworth Mexicana providing on-site support during the many intense weeks of shooting. 16 of these metal titans were on set and can hold 200 gallons of gasoline for each tanker. Engage gunfire, hang for dear life, and already we're off to a tense, heart-racing start. They do a really fun mini one-sided knife fight in the cab. One-sided because he's fighting 007, not because the henchman is the one with the knife. Remember folks, PASS. Pull pin, aim, squeeze lever, and sweep side to side. Stay safe from fires. Check out this moment where Bond's tanker bumps another tanker into a wall. This was an accident, but it looked so wild that it was left in the film and the script and scene were reworked to accommodate this spontaneous crash. Let's talk about the accidents that occurred. Locals and crew members believed that the location was indeed haunted. Another truck and a driver went off the road and down a mountain. The stunt driver acted fast and jumped into the sleeper berth, which saved his life. A prop rocket had accidentally fired, hitting a utility worker on a telephone pole more than 2 miles away. One night a truck burst into flames for no reason, and sightings of apparitions around the trucks would disappear if someone went up to them. Not to mention that there was a photo of a flaming hand during the climax of the scene that only appeared in this photo and not in the rushes. The filmmakers saw it as an omen. Now, we're not saying the fatal accidents on this particular highway were linked to any of these stories that had been shared by the crew, but it's all very weird and very spooky. Steer clear of this highway if you can. Our next big scene involves a missile launched from a Stinger, which was an FIM-43 Red-Eye launcher, and then we witness this sick tilt that ends up landing on this unfortunate white Jeep. According to the late Larry Orr, the chief engineer at Kenworth at the time, the trucks, such as the driverless truck where a stunt driver can operate behind the driver's seat off camera, the back wheelie and side tilt trucks, and a truck with a supercharged 1,000 horsepower engine that's close to 3 times the normal amount for a truck like that, were an exciting challenge to make and provide. Some went to the Detroit Diesel Allison dealership. The back wheelie and dual steer truck went to Truckwell to be modified, and the back wheelie had a suspension put on with a rear and front axle and a steering brake specifically installed to perform these mind-blowing tricks. They recruited Assistant Chief Engineer Mo Boeringrud to design the dual steer truck, who then published an instruction manual for the design that was sent to the film production team in Mexico. We've got to emphasize that work like this had not been done before by anyone ever. No one knew if they could control an engine with 2 throttle pedals independently of one another. Most of these truck stunts were performed by vehicle stunt supervisor Remy Julien. The most shocking and impressive part of this whole thing is that he didn't need some of these custom rigs at all. In other words, this stunt was done for real with no aid. I didn't think this was even possible with a vehicle of that scale. Isn't that simply amazing? Action is drama without words. A moment that perfectly encapsulates this is the moment when the tanker loses a tire and has to drift to the edge of this cliff. Bond, vulnerable to gunfire, is saved by Pam, who unleashes maximum dust on the bad guys to slow them down. I love this moment when the two wave at each other as comrades on the battlefield. She really is one of the great Bond girls. For this moment, the stunt team had a remote release and also made a trail on the dirt where the tanker goes down, so the path doesn't diverge too much. It took an extreme amount of timing and skill to link up when the tanker up the hill would hit the other tanker that was coming towards it. It's fantastic, of course, and the explosion is an epic appetizer for one's own thirst for destruction, setting off a chain reaction to all sorts of awesome explosions like this one and this one. We're also really awestruck by what Remy Julien was able to pull off here, and the amount of punishment a vehicle of this size can withstand. Major kudos to those engineers who put these units together. Badass. Let's also give it up for the stunt team as well as Timothy Dalton, giving us everything they've got during this routine I'd like to refer to as the human hook, performed at a frightening breakneck speed. Luckily, the aim for these bad guys is only slightly above that of a stormtrooper. Special effects designer John Richardson mentioned that for logistical reasons, the flaming Jeep shot wasn't shot in La Rumorosa. They had to find a cliff face that was a similar match to the scene, had a pilot remotely fly a miniature plane at 60 miles per hour, and time it with a 6 to 8 scale blazing Jeep that had to be set on fire at the right time so that the prop didn't get completely destroyed when it reached the plane. Timing was tricky, and timing is everything. We end up with this magical moment filled with comedy, wonder, and chaos, closing in on the tanker that Sanchez is in with a beautiful sense of clarity and geography with 007 and Pam present during this buttock-clenching moment. Oh no, what's this? Another missile launcher? Pam is down, but she'll return. The moment finally arrives when Bond, tired and severely weakened after the truck they were fighting on rolled down a hill, is faced with the man who gave him the reason to go on this whole journey of revenge. Before the machete inflicts the killing blow, Chekhov's lighter seals Sanchez's fate. Multiple 50-gallon drums with dynamite angled along with 15 to 20 other charges were wired up to what the special effects team calls a nail board. A detonation expert dropped the hurt and lit things up like a DJ dropping the bass and lighting up the dance floor. This whole chase is highlighted by poetic combustion. This one's for Felix. Now, let's check in with Timothy Dalton. Watch how his face tells us all we need to know. The sense that it's all over. His life continuing after this moment. The uncertain future ahead of him, and him finally having the time to process his grief. Not knowing whether Pam has survived or not, but of course, She does, and the world is a bit less cruel now. It's very rare to come across someone who would put License to Kill as their favorite Bond film. But one thing is for certain, the stunt team held nothing back and were able to push the envelope for its awesome display of vehicular mayhem and poetic catharsis. Because of License to Kill and the work of Kenworth, Larry Orr, Mo Buringrud, Detroit Diesel, Truckweld, Remy Julien, the stunt drivers, and 2nd Unit Special Effects Supervisor Chris Corbould, designer John Richardson, and the rest of the special effects team, it opened the door of possibilities to just what trucks are capable of when they're pushed to the limit. From the paranormal occurrences to cutting-edge engineering and movie magic, they were able to put together a monumentally epic action scene, and that's why it's such a blast to watch, and the story behind it is so worth sharing. What's your favorite Bond action scene? What movie truck scene do you want us to examine next? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Until next time.